represents the face of special education? Is it African American students? Caucasian students? Native American students? Boys or girls? In order to address this question, one must think of disproportionate representation in special education. But what is that? Disproportionate representation in special education occurs when there is an overrepresentation or underrepresentation of a specific population in special ed in relation to that group's overall student population. For example, if looking at a particular school, one found 25% of Native American children to be in special education, but only 3% of Caucasian children to be in special education, this would be a disproportionate representation. Another example could include if African American students were more likely to be labeled with an emotional behavior disorder or mental retardation when compared to students of other cultural backgrounds in that same school. One final example could include if boys were more likely than girls to qualify for special education services in a particular school. This is an example of disproportionate representation in special ed that I see at the school I work at. 73% of our special education population is composed of boys, while they make up only 46% of the total student population. This isn't just an issue seen at my school. According to the National Education Association's publishing titled The Truth in Labeling, nearly 75% of specific learning disability students are male. 67% of students with the emotional and behavior disorder diagnosis are males. And 75% or more of students receiving speech and language services are also males. But why does this happen? Well, it's impossible to be sure. There are a few possibilities, such as boys acting out behavior could look bigger and be more disruptive. Boys who are off task can be, again, more disruptive to the class, thus getting a quicker teacher referral. Or finally, girls may just simply shut down and not try or put their head down instead of being disruptive to the class. This could be less noticeable to teachers.
So what does this mean for us special ed teachers? Thankfully, the federal government has passed a few regulations to help us out and keep us accountable for accurate assessment.
Special education has been an ever-changing field. Historically, children with special needs, beginning in the 1800s, were educated in private residential settings called institutions. After some time, intelligence testing was used as a basis for determining if one needed special ed. This, however, was unfair because it discriminated against certain cultures and didn't always measure what was most important in the classroom. Finally, in 1975, the federal government passed IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Act. IDEA had two main goals. Number one, to protect the rights of children with disabilities, and number two, to give parents a voice to their child's education. While IDEA is not the only federal regulation regarding special education to be passed, it has been the most impactful over time. Since its inception, provisions have been made to IDEA. First, states and schools must collect and publicly report data on race and ethnicity of students in special ed. Next, restrictiveness of class and school placement of all students in special education must be tracked. This is reported in the LRE, or Least Restrictive Environment portion of the IEP. IDEA also mandates that a team approach must be used in writing IEPs. This means that parents and guardians must be involved in the IEP process. Most importantly, this federal law entitles all children with disabilities to free and appropriate education. It also mandates non-discriminatory testing or assessment, identification, and programming. This requires that all special education teachers be adequately trained and prepared in the assessments they will be given in order to determine special education placement. Also, there are state and federal guidelines outlining eligibility determination. Be sure to check those guidelines to ensure your compliance. So what does this mean for special ed teachers? First, special ed teachers and the IEP team must work closely to ensure quality assessment practices and education of those who will be providing the assessments. Secondly, the IEP team must work closely with the ELL team, or English Language Learning team. This cooperation ensures that the students being assessed do not have a language barrier. One final implication for special ed teachers could be the amount of time spent on ensuring quality assessment. However, what's more important than spending time on meeting or determining the needs of students you might serve? However, the large task of ensuring that disproportionate representation in special education does not fully fall to special education teachers. It is a school-wide issue and requires a team approach. More emphasis should be placed on a high-quality RTI process. RTI stands for Response to Intervention. This is the process students who may be referred to special education should go through. A quality RTI process uses research-based instruction and intervention, universal screening, and a multi-tiered instructional approach. A collaborative team approach is also necessary, as well as objective data collection and, as always, parent involvement. Finally, good classroom management allows for less behavior or acting out within the classroom, and therefore decreased referrals to special education. A few tips could include posting rules in a positive language that state the specific expected behavior, utilizing a flexible physical classroom environment allows students to learn in the way that best meets their physical needs. Some examples could be using ball chairs, wiggle seats, or stools for students to learn on. In these environments, students are able to select the learning environment or seating arrangement that best meets their own needs. Finally, giving students the opportunity to practice classroom rules and procedures, as well as allowing for time and choice within student work, allows for students to learn in the best way to meet their own needs. In doing some of these things, teachers can avoid more referrals to special education and possibly eliminate the opportunity for disproportionate representation in special education. It takes a team approach. While we can't solve the problem of disproportionate representation in special education overnight, with the use of our federal regulations such as IDEA and a team approach, we can best meet the needs of all students, thus ensuring an appropriate face for special education.